Uh-oh.
Okay, so we're back on the custom power supply kind of dealio for the LWAN board. Where we last left off, we were basically had laid all this stuff out, drilled some holes in this cover plate, laid out the main box for all the holes for the 2.1 millimeter ports. Here, all of these guys, the input, and we recessed and got some shorter screws so that it's all nice and flush here, so we can either not double stick it, but Velcro it down or screw it down onto our pedal board, and it'll be, kind of nice there. Won't move around too much. And now, I guess what we're going to do is we're going to wire this thing up. But I'm kind of curious to take this tape off while we're kind of talking about stuff here. The drilling went real well. These little DC jacks that I got, the 2.1 millimeter, which are these UR Best, I got off of eBay from some seller. They came with free overnight shipping. And they were like $4 for 15 of them. How anybody makes any money off of overnighting $4 worth of stuff to somebody is beyond me. If anything, they should charge you money to come pick them up and make you pick them up. I don't know how that even makes sense, but I got them. So we wanted to mount everything onto the bottom plate, right, the cover plate or bottom plate, so that we can keep everything looking kind of nice, right? Because we've got a nice case here in flat black that has, a good professional quality look to it. So if we had drilled a bunch of holes in it, the way that I would do a chassis, right, when I was doing amplifiers with the monkeys, still doing amplifiers with the monkeys, was we would, have them powder coated afterwards, right? So you wouldn't be creating a lot of mess and ruining your nice chassis. We would have our chassis all drilled up and punched and lasered or whatever, and then powder coated so that all the holes would look nice. So since this is already powder coated, I felt that it would be best to make all the components on the bottom, and then we could just put the top on there, and we've got all our outputs and input. So that looks really nice, and it's black, so we could put like one of these stickers on there, right? We get the 3 Monkey Solderless sticker on there, and it'll look nice. So we'll be doing that. Yeah, you need to check out obviously 3 Monkey Solderless stuff. It's the best cables on the planet. We got AC and DC, so here's the little infomercial and custom cable, right? And the way that this stuff works is literally you just take the tool you need is a box cutter. You just kind of cut the end off of the cable at the length that you want, nice and flush, and then you take your end and you just screw it on like that, right? Like that. And now the cable's done. And we have these guys for your audio, and we've got these guys for DC. So check those out. So getting back on the power supply here, I figure the thing to do now is to start wiring all this stuff up. So I'm going to get my soldering iron out into play. All right, let me move some of this stuff. Pen, we don't need that. Got our capacitors. We got our little homebrew sponge for keeping our iron clean. And I guess the first thing that we're going to do is probably these capacitors, right? These are going to be mounted here. And we want them all to be, nice together with one another. So I'm going to mount them, I think. Yeah, like that. I think that's good, right? Plenty of room. So let's go ahead and get these both ready. I put a little bit of a, let's say a little bit of a crimp in them, so that way they kind of mount flush, right? So these would be located like this. This will be located like this, and I want them to line up with one another, so we go like this. So we're going to basically bend them down, right, and then bend them up a little bit. So they create a little bit of an offset. So when you put them in there, right, they sit up nice and flush, right? So it sits flush with the bottom. So that looks good. So we got this one. Actually, I've already put the crimp on there. So I'm gonna put this guy together. All right, and actually this is backwards. I did this one wrong. So I'm gonna straighten it back out again. Hopefully I won't break a lead. That would break my heart, because then I got to order more of these, and then that'll put our project on hold again, which I can't do it. I can't do it. All right, so it should go that way. Wait, did we have it right the whole time? Yeah, we did. All right, so I'm once again proved to be an idiot. All right, so put it back in. The hell's wrong with you? Right? So we'll stand them up for soldering purposes. Right? Put that guy there. Put this guy right next to it. Right, and then I'm just going to go ahead and get my solder. Cleanse my tip and start going to town with these guys, right? And on cue, the phone should ring, because I didn't put it on mute. And that's probably somebody robocalling me, right? Because they want something. Because I had to probably give them my phone number to buy these capacitors. So now every retard from here to fucking Wyoming, excuse my French, has my phone number as someone that has a valid credit card and might be a good target for buying miscellaneous crapola. We call that the hot list. Right? Okay, so those 4 are ready to go. Actually, that was a friend of mine calling. I'll have to call him back. Put this stuff together. Now start soldering this side. Right? That's exciting. These guys take a little while to heat up. So anyway, there we have them, ready to go. I'm going to trim the leads down now. We used to have a lot of fun with these clippers in the shop, shooting wire clippings at each other. If you've ever worked with a pair of these clippers and some thick leads like these, you know that if you clip them without holding on to them, they could fly across the room. So that's pretty cool. Alright, so there we go. That guy will go there. And this guy will go there. Right? And if we flipped it, we would have the opposite, positive to negative. So maybe we'll do that. Let's do that. Let's turn them this way. So that way we have positive on this side and negative on that side. So now we could just go ahead and attach these with some screws that I got here. Right? Nice and smooth. Right? Put our little cap network there. Got to get the screwdriver right here. it's a tight little area. We're gonna have to go this way, I think, to just start it. There we go. Now we could go ahead and just send her home. Right? Get it lined up, and then we can put in the next one. Grab El Nutto and drop it on the floor. There we go. Got our nut driver so we can tighten this guy down here. Right? So this is going to be our mains ground, so to speak, right there. Where we're going to basically ground the rectifier unit as well as the capacitor network, the mains sort of reservoir capacitor network. So we want this one to be nice and snug without actually destroying anything. Alright, without stripping anything. You want a nice snug ground. Okay. So these guys are in there nice and snug. Right? Could probably get turned a little bit. There we go. That looks a little better. Right? Alright, and then we can use a little bit of Loctite to keep those nuts from moving around. You don't want your nuts moving around when you're trying to keep them into place. Alright, so let's start wiring. Get this stuff out of the way. Get ourselves a little drink, and I'm going to be using 22 gauge, which I think will be plenty to handle what current we got going on in here at this voltage. So no problems there. Where did I put that? Who knows? It's probably sitting right in front of me like that other jack was the whole time. Alright, so let's start wiring. Should we use green, black, red, white? We're going to use black and red. So let's start with connecting our grounds on the capacitor network. We're going to start with that first. And strip a little lead and start going to town on it. So I'm going to connect our negatives to our negatives. I put a little extra solder on that guy. Right, negatives are on the outside. And you can tell positive and negative for you guys that aren't always screwing around with this stuff on capacitors by the stripe on the side of the body of the capacitor. Right, that you have this little stripe there, that indicates negative. So if you're unsure, you can always use your multimeter and put the probes on the leads and see if you end up with, let's say, a positive reading or a negative reading. And when you end up with a positive reading, you know that the corresponding leads are in the right places, so your positive lead is on your positive terminal. Vice versa, if you're ending up seeing negative voltage, and it'll be very low, obviously, then you know that you done reversed them. So there's a little helpful hint for you. So we're just creating this sort of parallel network of capacitors, all right, as a big reservoir. 4 of these 1000 mic 50 volt capacitors. Let's see where which is the, yep, this side, see? You don't want to confuse your polarities. That, as they say, would be bad. you mess up good enough, you could splatter yourself with a bunch of electrolytic, as the capacitor will heat and explode, which can be fun in itself if you got nothing better to do. Alright, so these two are left sort of unsoldered, so I'm going to have to go across, right? Well, actually, I could go across there too. I could have done it that way. But that's not the way I done did it. And I like to pre-tin the leads. You can buy wire that's actually pre-tinned. It's called the top coat tin wire, which saves you some time. But I didn't find any of this particular wire that I wanted to use, so I just tin it. It helps create some formability in the wire, so you can bend it and it'll hold shape. It'll keep the strands, because it's a stranded wire, together. If you use solid core wire, I suppose it wouldn't be as critical. But still, you get a nice tin on there, which helps with your connection. You know that the wire's fully tinned. Most parts that you get have a tinning on them already, so there's no real need to tin your parts, say like resistors or capacitors. The leads are usually tinned already when you get them. There we go. So the negative terminals are now joined. Now we're going to grab some red wire and we'll do the positive terminals. And maybe we'll do positive connection on the reverse side. How does that sound? To keep things kind of neat. So we'll spin it around and we'll go like that. Alright, we'll bring this down to here. Alright, and I'm also going to attach another lead there, which will go to our rectifier, so I might as well do it now. Alright, and then I can tin that terminal, or rather solder that terminal down in place. Now, in something like wiring, sort of, there's actually a mil-spec way of wiring, right? Military specifications for equipment, which they believe creates a more reliable piece of equipment. So they specify on things like this that you do a 270-degree wrap, which is just about like that. Okay, so we're going to bring it over to, this is the positive terminal of our rectifier. So we're going to go ahead and connect up the rectifier. All right. And we can also continue with our leads to series, or rather parallel up our reservoir capacitors on the positive side. Flip it around again. You know, it'd be cool if YouTube, because I can't do it, nor do I want to do it, but to speed this stuff up. I wonder if, I don't even know if it does. Maybe it does. YouTube have like a 4 times play feature where it'll play the video at 4 times speed or 6 times speed. Because I guess watching some people may be like, this is a little bit too much like drying paint. But for other people, they look for this stuff, right? They like to watch paint dry. I'm kind of like that. When I look at or if I'm looking for a video to watch, if I have some time, some spare time, I sort them by duration. And I prefer to watch a video that's over 20 minutes. I prefer if it's like an hour. So I feel like there's going to be something in that hour. If it's 5 minutes or 4 minutes or whatever, these sort of like popular length videos, quick hits in and out, I always feel like they're formulaic and you're not going to see anything too much, or there's not going to be any depth to it. It's just kind of going to be a bing, 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 here it is, done, thank you so much. And it's just kind of pablum. It's not really a an in-depth thing or something interesting, all right? Sometimes time-lapse can be more interesting than real time. I can see that too. So we're gonna bring this like that. Now we gotta hook up the ground of the rectifier. So I don't know whether I'm going to show the whole construction of this box here. You know, every single soldered joint. That might be a little too much. Oh, there goes the phone again. I thought I shut it off. You know, it'd be funny if Apple could copyright that sound, which I bet they may have it copyrighted already, and then give you a copyright strike anytime a phone rings in your video. As I'm getting copyright strikes for background noise. Not that I care, because I'm not monetizing anything. Nor am I commercializing what they're saying I'm violating their copyrights of. So, to me, it's just background noise. You know? Get that through the through hole. There we go. Okay. There we have it. So now you can see we have basically our rectifier and our reservoir capacitors all set up. We've got the positive and negative going to corresponding negative and positive terminals. We have them all put in in parallel. So these will create a nice stable supply. Nice generous supply for all of our different regulators and their supplies. Alright, so sorry for the interruption. It appears the camera battery died. I didn't have it plugged into the wall appropriately, so it went off. So I'm not sure where we left off exactly. But I believe, you know, obviously we left off right around here. So what I want to do now is... so we have the supply. We're going to just basically build out, because I mean a lot of this, at the same time it got me thinking too that a lot of this might be repetitive, and maybe you don't want to watch all of that. So I think what we'll do is I'll build out, let's say, one of these, because these are identical sort of circuits. 3, 4, 5, 6, okay. Tantalums, we got our tantalums, our 10, or rather 0.1 microfarad. We have some of these 10s, 10 microfarad at 50 volts. We need 6 of these, 2 of those, 3 of these. Give me a couple of those and set my man up with the whole schmear. What do you get, a free bowl of soup with this power supply? Okay, so we got 6 of those, and we'll get 6 of these. Right, these are hundreds. All right, and this is sort of like the, I think I might have drew the circuit for you before, but I think I might have, my memory is making me think that I might have not done it or I did it wrong. So I'm going to draw it here just for my own stupid brain so I don't goof it all up. But basically we have one of these units here, right? Right, and this is our little regulator. It's got this leg coming this way, that leg coming this way, that leg coming this way, right? And then we're on our little sort of rail, right? So this is the input right here, right? So this would be connected up here to the power supply. So we've got our main power supply, let's say, right? Positive, negative, right? Positive, negative. So the positive basically we'd be bringing to here, right? The negative is that chassis, right? This is our negative, which is that chassis, right? It's grounded through the pin here, right? Through this, which is bolted to the chassis itself. Get this out of the way. And this is your output, right? So this will be going out to the jack as well as here, right? So these would be for our jack. Now between these you need some capacitors which help stabilize the little voltage regulator and help filter out some of the switching noise and some of the hash that's left over. I don't think there's going to be much, but we're going to use three different capacitors, right? So on the input side, we're going to want to use a big 100, right? UF microfarad, plus this tantalum here, 0.1. All right, and then on this side, we're going to use a smaller capacitor, which is just a 10. All right, so let me go ahead and build one of these out for you. So we got the input on this side. So, and these should all be sort of strung together, right? In series, one to the next, 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 next, sort of deal. So I'll do that as well as we're kind of working. So I got some red wire as well that we have here. So first let's go to the output side, which of the unit, and we have our capacitor. The long leg is always the positive, right? Another one of our great things that we like to do consistently so that it becomes a doesn't become such a problem. Well, you know what? Let's do the tantalum first because we want that all the way on the bottom, and that could be a pain in the butt. So I'm going to put the tantalum in first. Right, so here we go. So the tantalum will go like that. Right, so I'm going to bend out these wires like so. Bring it up. Fold it over. Just so it gets in here nicely. All right. Okay. Okay, it's attached. Now I can basically snip off what little excess there is of lead as it's twisted around our post or our tab, whatever you want to call it, right? And I can basically just heat it up just a tiny bit so it secures it in place. Right, here we go, just enough to tin it in place, and then I can bend it over, and I can use let's say I'll use this, a little screwdriver to kind of bend over so that it doesn't make contact with anything I don't want it to. It kind of keeps it up in the air. And I'll grab one of the 100 mics, right, the bigger capacitor, and I'll orientate it so that we got our polarities correct, right? It'd be bad if we ignored proper polarity. We would get a possible smoke out. Right? Okay. So there we go. So this is the input side, right? So we're going to want a daisy chain from there to the power supply and on to the next unit. So somewhere around here I have my wire strippers, right? Oop. That's stuck together. I'm just going to kind of drop my solder on the floor. Tell you, towards the end of the days, I get tired. There we go. Into the power reservoir, and then we'll come down like that to our input of our first regulator. There we go. And then we'll insert it through said hole. And then we'll also insert from the front another lead, which will go on to the next unit, right? Because we're running all of these kind of, you know, in parallel to one another. Although it looks kind of like series, like a Christmas tree, it's not series, it's parallel. Okay, solder this all home. That's good right there. And I could trim off this little excess lead right here, right? And that looks nice. And then I can just kind of bring this over to the next next unit, right? Like so, and just cut it to length, and I'll leave that for now. Now I'll take my 10, and I'll put my 10, being careful to once again get the polarity correct. I didn't solder the middle out. No, I didn't. Okay, good. And that will go right here. All right, so I'll bend over my lead so it makes a good connection mechanically as well as when we do the solder. And this can just be soldered up here, right? And then solder here. And that will be basically our first unit, right? So I'm going to trim off the little excess there. All right, so basically we have everything we need right there. I'm going to neaten this up a little bit. There's a little extra, obviously, leads here. I'm going to get a good look at that. And I'm going to go ahead and trim it out. That looks good. Place my screwdriver under there, flatten it all. Then I'm going to look at it under a good light and make sure that nothing's shorted. And it looks good. All right, so actually what we could do is we can test this right now to see if in fact it's working correctly. And then we can proceed from there. So I got my meter out and I got this. I'll get the power supply. All right. Here's our power supply that we talked about before. I'm going to go ahead and plug this into the wall right here. Right. And there it is. And it is in fact lit up. Let's check our voltage to check our meter. See what we're getting. 24 volts. Good, good, good. Now I could just solder on. I've got a DC jack 2.1 millimeter, which will go with that. Let me unplug this. And I could just go ahead and solder this on, tack it onto our bridge rectifier here. And you don't have to worry about polarity in this case because we're using a bridge that sort of will sort out the positive and the negative and put it to the correct place, being the diodes will block what should be blocked. With that which should be blocked will be blocked. So now we can plug into our unit, right? Put this aside. We got our test probes. Let's get a ground point, let's say there, right? And then we would want our output, which is right here, right? Now when I plug this in, we'll either get voltage or we'll get smoke. So let's see what we get. Let's double check. Negative, negative, input, output, ground. Looks good. So let's plug it in and see what we get. And as you can see on our meter right here, we got the 9 volts, right? Which is what we want, which is great. So we got a functioning unit right now for one isolated by at least, well, not ground isolated, but its own little power supply there. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug this, put it away, and then I can continue basically replicating that exact same little circuit around our little regulator there, one after the other, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more times. And then we will basically be able to take our case, put our jacks in, and put it together. And then we should be able to get building ourselves the pedal board, which I'm really looking forward to, because I need something to play through. Not that I don't have enough stuff to play through upstairs. I kind of want to play through this really badly, and it's been a long time. Waiting for parts, waiting for this, waiting for that. It's driving me nuts. All right, so I think I'm going to do some wiring, and when I come back, we should have all these guys ready to go for you. So stick around, and we'll be right back. Okay, we've done the rest of the wiring. We've got our little daisy chain of our supplies from our reservoir to all of our regulators. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 9-volt regulators, 1 12-volt regulator. We got our input jack, 2.1 millimeter, soldered into our rectifier. Everything's looking good. So now let's got our multimeter here. So let's go ahead and test this guy and see how it's working. So I'm going to plug into the port, plug the power supply into the wall. We've got power. I'm going to turn off this light so we can see the meter a little bit better, right? Now let's go ahead and check what we got. So for our supply voltage, we have 23, which is good. So at our first, 9 volts, good. Second, 9, good. Third, 9, good. Fourth, 9, good. Fifth, 9, good. And final, 12. All right, so this is working good. So I think this is probably enough for today. Tomorrow we'll go ahead and, like I said, and put all the jacks into the case and do the final assembly and test. But this is just takes a little time to build and economical way of putting together a power supply. And a sort of a unit that you can use over and over again. This guy with just having a $20 extension unit to regulate it down and give yourself the voltages that you're looking for. So I think that's good for today. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow when we finish this thing up and keep going. All right, I'll see you.